Mary Lou Holt, a proud member of the Quality of Life project team. And I'm privileged this evening to have the honor of introducing my fellow team members, Connie Battisti, Sally Jensen, Jim Newman, and Elise Gladier Hollingsworth. We want to also acknowledge and thank our Leadership Napa Valley Group Consultant, Gerard Perez. Gerard, thank you for your guidance and your moral support. I also want to acknowledge our honorary team member, Danzel Hollingsworth. Not surprising, our first task was to decide what we believe constituted the quality of life. We talked about everything under the sun: recreation, safety, health, multicultural awareness, language, education, and so many other themes. We spent quite a few evenings on that subject, always trying to narrow down our choices to the one that we could all agree on for a project. And throughout all this brainstorming and all the discussions that we had with community leaders and serious consideration, we realized that we kept coming back to education, to the idea that volunteerism was the way to involve the community and to do something good for our schools. We became motivated about what we perceived to be a real need in our community, and we also became very excited about the possibility that we might be able to help. We finally chose as our project to design a prototype of an umbrella organization which would provide and coordinate qualified volunteers to support education in the Napa Valley. We named our project Vitality: Volunteers Inspiring Talent, Ability, and Learning in Today's Youth. We developed a project objective, a mission statement, program goals, ideas about organization and organizational structures, and we also developed a survey for educators. Our written report, which we're very proud, and you now have a copy of, is divided into 5 sections: challenging the process, which includes our mission statement; modeling the way, strategies for success; enabling others; inspiring a shared vision; and encouraging the heart. Our mission statement expresses our dedication to what we believe is a noble and much needed goal. We believe that a quality of life in the Napa Valley will be enhanced by the community's commitment to support excellence in education. At this time, you will hear from Connie, from Sally, from Jim, and from Elise, and they'll give you some of the highlights of our research, our goals, and finally, our commitment to fulfill our vision with the help of everyone who believes, as we do, that education truly enhances our quality of life.
I'm Connie Battisti. Maya Angelou said, "To survive is important, but to thrive is elegant." Today, many schools in America are struggling just to survive. Due to dwindling funds, they are facing a crisis not experienced by recent generations of school-age children. Classrooms, I needn't tell you, are overcrowded, resources diminished, equipment lacking, textbooks out of date, and buildings in desperate need of repair. To compound all of this, our schools, once a safe haven, are now an environment that no longer are immune to the ills that afflict our society at large. Many of us have heard the African proverb that has become very popular in the last year. It's popular mainly because, in its own beautiful simplicity, it carries a very valuable truth. And that truth is that it takes a whole village to raise one child. The spirit and philosophy of that proverb has never been more profound and never had a more profound meaning nor need to be embraced than it does today. This is especially true as we become more isolated and disconnected, and as our economic resources continue to diminish and deteriorate, our societal complexities challenge and perplex us, and the future demands and expects more from us and from our children. The responsibility of educating children can no longer rest on the shoulders of our public schools, its teachers, or a few dedicated parents, students, and members of the community. Schools require the support of the entire community, the full human village, to provide the necessary resources of time, energy, dollars, and commitment. Our schools, like our children, need to do more than merely survive. They deserve and they have a right to thrive. The Leadership Quality of Life project team strongly endorses this philosophy. In fact, we believe the quality of life for our children and our communities will be enhanced by a commitment to support educational excellence, as Mary Lou has said. We envision this commitment and this mission being achieved through a comprehensive, valley-wide, coordinated school volunteer program, one that will encompass all areas. The community-wide program would offer a major resource of support and assistance to our educational communities. It would promote and inspire achievement and self-esteem, as was indicated today with Harris's group. It would promote and expand, enhance, support, and recognize the community involvement and the awareness of public education. And finally, it would exemplify a commitment and a model of excellence for our educational system. The ideal goal of such a community-wide program would be to enlist the help of individuals throughout the entire Napa Valley, to serve as a broker and a clearinghouse to recruit, to screen, train, place, and coordinate qualified volunteers throughout participating schools. This would be individuals from our student population, our senior population, our businesses, our parents, everyone across our communities. Another goal would be to develop programs and services in cooperations with our schools and existing volunteer groups that have the greatest impact on students, teachers, and administration. And finally, such a program would serve as a catalyst to link and to promote partnerships between the community, businesses, other organizations, and schools. We all come to realize, as was evidenced here just a few moments ago, that volunteers from the full community, the parents, the senior population, students, business, service, and civic organizations are all needed in order to address the challenges that schools face today. They have an immediate impact on the quality of life and offer an ideal avenue to create and foster involvement. Involvement, the cornerstone, energy, and vitality, if you will, of any community. By expanding and coordinating a comprehensive volunteer effort, we can create a viable and valuable force of support for our schools. Together, we can build and strengthen the foundation of our community, the village community, in which our schools and our children can thrive. I'd now like to turn this over to Sally, who will talk a little bit about our survey results.
Good evening, I'm Sally Jensen. Once our group decided to do this project and looked at our lofty goals and our mission, we decided that we wanted to find out from our community whether or not this kind of a program, a coordinated valley-wide umbrella organization, was really needed, and to determine whether community leaders and educators would be interested in such a program. And finally, we wanted to look at what other school volunteer programs existed that we could look to for guidance. So what we did was we developed a survey and conducted the survey of educators. That survey was conducted in Napa Valley Unified School District in the elementary, middle, and high schools. The teachers, principals, and administrative staff were surveyed to assess their interest and need for school volunteers, as well as to determine what kinds of volunteer programs and efforts were already existing in the schools. 82% of the schools in the district were represented in the survey, and 226 questionnaires were completed and returned. Of those, 204 were from teachers. This represents about 27% of the teachers within Napa Valley Unified School District. And although the Up Valley school districts were not included in the survey due to time constraints and logistics, we felt that the Napa Valley Unified Survey fairly represented the teacher perceptions and opinions about volunteers in the schools. The survey consisted of 16 questions addressing such areas as the current level and type of volunteer involvement presently offered and utilized, what the perceived value of and access to volunteer assistance was, the identification of unmet needs, and suggestions for additional volunteer service areas. And finally, we asked the merit in developing a coordinated volunteer program that would incorporate volunteer recruitment, screening, training, placement, service development, and scheduling. Our survey results found an overwhelming response from local educators that they do use volunteers and they want more. They reported that they value and appreciate their presence and assistance. There were 91% of the educators who overwhelmingly supported the concept of a comprehensive school volunteer program in which volunteers would be recruited, screened, and trained. And this program would be a resource both for individuals in the community who wish to volunteer their services to the school, as well as for schools and teachers to go to that resource and find volunteers in an area that they are either teaching or looking at in their classes. In addition to the survey, we interviewed many other community and education leaders throughout the entire valley, including the Up Valley school districts and community leaders. And these people included school superintendents, administrators, board members, and other community leaders who we thought might be interested in this school volunteer project. These leaders shared their views on the value of the volunteers in schools, their perceptions of the need for a valley-wide coordinated program, and suggested how we might develop a program for coordinated school volunteers right here in the Napa Valley. It was very clear from our interviews and our survey that although there are many dedicated parents and volunteers currently working in the schools, that there's also a need and support for a more coordinated school volunteer program. We concluded from our research that all participants appeared to both appreciate and value volunteers and community involvement, that they would utilize more volunteer help if it was available, that they recognized a need for a comprehensive effort in recruitment, screening, and training volunteers for all student levels, and that they would support the concept of an accessible, coordinated, community-wide school volunteer effort. With this acknowledgement of the need and support for a coordinated school volunteer program, we then started to look at how such a program as Vitality could be organized in Napa. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim Newman to talk a little bit more about how it could be organized.
Good evening, I'm Jim Newman. Our research indicates that a coordinated school volunteer program is a very desirable goal for Napa Valley. But how do we actually implement this structure? To help us answer this question, we decided to take a look at some other programs that are being implemented already in the country. And our first program that we looked at is in San Francisco, and it's cleverly called the San Francisco School Volunteer Program. They established the organization in 1963, and today they have over 3,100 active volunteers in their program, and they have 22 paid staff people that orchestrate and administer the program. They are independently organized from the school district, but the school district actually supports about 10% of their annual $1 million budget. The rest of their money comes from foundations, from businesses, and individual contributions. Another program we reviewed is the Houston program. It's called Volunteers in Public Schools, or VIPs. And that's actually implemented through the school district itself. And since they were founded in 1970, over 23,000 volunteers have been involved, and over 1 million hours have been contributed towards the schools. by those volunteers. A little closer to home, we have the Berkeley School Volunteer Program, which was recently formed. It was formed in 1991. And that's actually a partnership that's put together between the Berkeley Public Education Foundation and the Berkeley School District. And what happens there is that the foundation administers the program and funds it, but the school district provides office space and office support services. They started off the first year with about 70 registered volunteers, and this year they'll have about 200 active volunteers in their program. And that's actually being directed now by one volunteer coordinator and a little part-time help. So it's a pretty effective program on a fairly small-scale basis. The three programs I just outlined provide guidelines for designing a Napa Valley system, but let's see. However, but in Napa Valley, we wanted to review all the possibilities that might exist here before any one particular approach is perhaps selected. In Napa Valley, we could approach it a number of different ways. First, we could actually set up an independent foundation, much like San Francisco has. Secondly, we could operate under an existing nonprofit like the Volunteer Center of Napa Valley. Under that program, we could set up an advisory board which would handle specific issues related to school volunteers, and they are already set up to screen and recruit volunteers. They also have an active funding program. So that's an in-place nonprofit that we could utilize. A third approach would be to have it sponsored by the school district itself, like the Houston system. Currently, St. Helena and Calistoga are looking at that kind of an approach. But they haven't really formalized how they want to coordinate their volunteers, so it's a perfect time to bring these other districts into play. The fourth system would be a system not unlike Berkeley, where you have the foundation. Foundations of the school districts take a very active role and do a partnership between the foundation and the school district, again having the school district provide office space and support services. And then finally, it could perhaps be established under the Napa County Office of Education and give Ed something else to do in his spare time. The Quality of Life team does not really want to make a recommendation on which approach is most appropriate this time. It's such an important decision that we think it should be made by individuals and groups that have an active interest in volunteers and education. But whatever method we select, it should be a method that will share information between groups, perhaps use standardized recruiting techniques, jointly apply for grants from foundations to help fund the program, and basically be a truly coordinated effort, even though it may be set up perhaps by different, each district might have its own separate coordinator, but if that occurs, if that's the ultimate structure, they should definitely network together and use the same kind of database. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elise.
I'm not that tall. Good evening, I'm Elise Glatty Hollingsworth, and my job is to tell you about our recommendations. The Quality of Life team recommends the formation of a broad-based vitality task force consisting of educators, school board members, district education foundation members, interested business and community leaders from throughout the county. We will be seeking the assistance of many of you, like everybody else. Our immediate objective is to agree on an operating structure, confirm goals and objectives, and secure initial funding for the Office of Executive Volunteer Coordinator. Our job is to add vitality to public education in the Napa Valley. It does take a whole community to raise a child. The Quality of Life team wishes to share its vision with you through the premiere of our very own video production. Enjoy the film. Thank you for accepting the apple.
and think of vitality. Thank you very much.
Volunteerism is the seed of humanity. From it springs the promise of values and ethics.
Hi, I'm Diane Carey, and I'm the president of Napa Valley College. And I would just like to say I am wildly enthusiastic about this new Vitality project that Leadership Napa Valley Quality of Life group has put together. I had the privilege of talking with the group, and they are each one true community leaders. And as they looked around and said, what could really be of value to the community, they came up with this project of school volunteers. And I just think it's a wonderful idea, and I would like to say that it has my full personal support as well as the support of the college.
Napa County, this is such a small county that if you do anything for anyone, you see the direct result. So excited when I heard that the Chamber of Commerce was investing in a quality of life committee, and that some of you wonderful volunteers got into it with such passion and drive. 1 hour a week, doing what you do best and what you have a passion for, changes a life.
I'd like to read you just a short excerpt from this. Research now shows what we have long since: doing good makes us feel good. Studies in anecdotal evidence show that volunteering improves physical and psychological health, as well as enhancing feelings of spiritual and well-being. Many volunteers even describe experiencing a helper's high, a physical rush, and subsequently calm, similar to runner's high.
A guiding hand can direct positive achievement in children's lives.
Volunteers can be nurturers, they can be supportive, they can give comfort to kids, they can teach students that the communities care and give them a sense of self-esteem and importance and a feeling that they're cared about. And I think clearly that students end up doing what they see adults do. And I think it's good if we have a community of learners and a community, and when I speak of a community, I mean not only in our whole community, but in our schools, that when kids see volunteers and when kids work with volunteers, they learn that that's, as adults, that those are the kinds of things they want to emulate.
Probably the most significant role for a volunteer is that they model good community behavior. They actually say to the kids, this is the way adults act. This is what the adults do in the community to make the community better. This is the kind of thing that you're going to be doing as an adult. And what that does is it makes our community a special place.
Our kids here and everywhere need role models, positive role models, and they're always being bombarded with these negative role models out in the community, in the street, or wherever it is that they hang out. And they really need to meet more positive people in their community. And I think that as far as, the community at school at large, everyone would benefit.
Community leaders stress the importance of insightfully enlisting capable volunteers.
The best thing we have in Napa County are people. The resources that are valuable are people. And
in the nation. What we don't have is a lot of dollars, but what we do have are an awful lot of interested people. And if you go up and down this valley, you'll see multiple volunteer types of programs in almost every school. So that's a critical issue. The other thing that I think about in terms of volunteers is how do they come together as a group? We don't have an informal forum for them to dialogue. They need that kind of a dialogue. If we can develop an organization that is loose in structure so we don't get into such a highly structured thing, we're going to have a nice dialogue with people. They're going to learn from each other. They're going to share materials. They're going to share feelings. They're going to share war stories. They're going to have some strategies for being better when they go back to the classrooms. That informal dialogue is powerful, and it should remain informal. On the other hand, there's a formal part of it. The formal part of it is bring in the experts and have the experts occasionally work with the volunteers to develop real and important skills, because they need to be more or less clear that what they're doing is pedagogically sound, so that what they're doing with the kids will work, and the professionals can teach them that stuff. So I think this is a critical piece, is to be sure that we have that kind of staff development activities for volunteers. And a place for them to celebrate, a place for them to come together and say, hey, look what we've done. This is important. We can see the differences and the good things that have occurred for kids. And now we want to come together and celebrate those good things, because in that celebration, they become committed in a very real way to continuing that kind of experience.
I would like to see happen for the quality of life for all of the people in our community here in Napa and throughout the valley, is to foster a greater understanding between cultures, and that will eliminate a lot of the fears and a lot of the biases that are existing right now. And you know, unless those stereotypes are eliminated, then they're just going to be carried down from generation to generation, and the quality of our life is not going to improve. It's going to deteriorate, and I think we need to learn to live together and in peace and harmony, and I think that anything that helps that is a tremendous benefit.
I believe that this kind of an organization will probably help us to train the volunteers, to prepare the people that are receiving the volunteers, and to screen them, which I think is a very important element of this project. I believe that every school that I know of, whether it's private or whether it's public, are using volunteers more and more as the years progress. And I think that we need your help, and we want to work very, very closely with you to help design the program that you envision.
And to be able to depend on a steady flow of volunteers is really important.
Well, we definitely need more bilingual volunteers in our school here at Silverado Middle School. Currently, we do not have a regular system of bilingual people coming through here to volunteer.
And if we can have an organization that screens, that trains, that identifies volunteers and gives us a match with programs and teachers and kids where we need them, that would be just a marvelous example.
Each one of us is influenced by the lives of others we touch.
And we've seen the kids that Harris has nurtured go on to do wonderful things and be recognized.
It's my feeling that community service is as important as math or science or any other subject, and that in truth that the students often don't know what to do or how to get involved. And what happens once they learn about service, quite often it's a lifelong experience. They take that for the rest of their lives, and they begin to contribute the rest of their lives. It makes a big difference for themselves in building self-esteem. It makes a big difference in helping others develop their self-esteem.
The energy and enthusiasm of youth is a powerful ingredient when blended with the experience and wisdom of elders.
When need people of all ages. Going into the school is my preference because you can really influence a child for the better by your experience.
Quality of life is enhanced not only by the gifts we receive, but also by those we give.
You feel better for giving, and the community needs every one of us to give.
There are so many seniors in the community that would have so much to contribute to schools.
When I think about myself retiring, I love the idea of being able to go into the schools one day a week and being able to help out, being able to give back. So I just think this is wonderful. And the reason I'm particularly enthusiastic is that what I see this project doing is not only recruiting and screening volunteers, but also training them. I cannot underestimate how valuable I think this is, how much I truly commend the leadership of this particular group of people.
I commend you for trying to bring about this project, because I think that we really do need the help of volunteers and the whole community. And the schools especially. There's so many needs. There's so many things that people can contribute, can give, and help with. So I just want to thank you for that.
You know, we have this period of time that we're all living in a place called Humankind and a place called Napa Valley, and we're sharing that special time together. And it's a relatively short period of time when you think about humanity in its totality. And we're passing through that instant in time holding hands. And volunteers have to be connected to that holding hand process. If they're not connected to that one opportunity, they will have missed life. And volunteerism is a part of life, because we'll always ask ourselves the question, what did we do for our kids, and what did we do for our teachers, and what did we do for our community, and how effective were we in our church and contributing to the well-being of other folks. So volunteerism is the epitome of acting like a responsible adult and caring about others.
Alexander Pope noted, "'Tis education forms the common mind. Just as the twig is bent, the tree's inclined." Your commitment to volunteerism helps develop the roots of this tree that produces the fruit of humanity. Will you help us plant this tree and add vitality to education in the Napa Valley?